Creepypasta time. I know what happened to all the missing kids in my neighborhood. Honestly, I think I suppressed this memory for my own sake. When I think back, the only reason I forgot about it was to deal with what was happening around me. Last week I remembered it all. I wish I would have thought ahead of time instead of years later and in the moment, because now I'm screwed. Ever since I was young, we lived in a fairly decent-sized neighborhood. Even though it was pretty big, everyone knew everyone. Every kid knew every other kid, and every parent knew every other parent. Sleepovers and cookouts were so frequent, to an outsider, it probably looked like we were all one giant family. But we weren't. Everything looked perfect from the outside, but every family had their issues, mine included. There was always gossip and drama around every corner. I tried my best to stay out of it, and usually just hung out with my two best friends, James and Brian. The three of us were always on some sort of mission. You know, kids pretending to be army men, tag, and whatever else we deemed fun at the time. We'd always play in the woods behind Brian's house because it was the deepest into the forest you could go without getting lost or stuck. There was also a well, we called it the wishing well. I know. Really original. We were 10. Despite its oddity in the forest and how it stuck out like a sore thumb, we paid it no attention. When kids started disappearing, you'd think our neighborhood would be the first ones to be out there frantically looking, but we weren't. At first it was kids I only knew from cookouts and school. My parents told me I couldn't play in the woods anymore for my own safety, and I could only play in front of my house or Brian's. James's house was a much farther walk, and since Brian and I lived right across from each other, James would always walk down to our houses. When I asked my parents if they knew what was going on, it was always the same answer. I don't know, but someone dangerous is out there. They'd say, "Okay then, whatever." I'd respond. They didn't seem panicked, so why would I? Children kept disappearing, slowly but surely. Maybe 1 to 2 per year? I don't know. Enough to draw concern, even though nobody really seemed that concerned. I was fine, my friends were fine, so why should I be concerned? When I was 15 I started to think it was a domino effect. No one was panicking, so other people wouldn't panic sort of thing. But now, I'm freaking out. Last week was my 17th birthday. Brian, James, and I went out into the woods to smoke so our parents wouldn't know or smell it. Not long after we sat down on a fallen tree by the well, Brian and James started fighting. Irritated, I tried to defuse the situation as quickly as possible. Both of them still angry, but calmer, sat back down in silence. We smoked, the tension eased, and it was time to head back. James, obviously still riled up, fast walked ahead of us. Once he was out of hearing range, Brian stopped me. "Look, I know it's your birthday, but I need to tell you something." Brian's eyes were as wide as the moon as he continued taking. "I know what's been happening. I know where the missing kids go. You know I turn 18 next week, but I don't think I'll make it." Brian froze, scoping his surroundings for potential eavesdroppers before continuing. James was gone. I heard my parents talking, so I sat on the stairs to listen because I thought it was about my birthday present. They were talking about the well, man. His voice grew increasingly more frightened. Supposedly, if a parent throws a coin in the well before their child is 18, they can wish for their child too. He trailed off. He was sweating profusely. "Chill dude. You know how crazy this is about to sound?" I replied with confidence. "Everything is fine. You're going to be fine, and we're going to party till we drop," I said, trying to sound as convincing as possible. Boy, was I wrong. The next day, I went to Brian's house around noon to see if he was awake. His mother was always up very early, despite her never working. His father worked as an accountant and it paid pretty well, but he was never home during the day. I knocked. I waited. I knocked again. Nothing. They always answer. I started to worry. I knocked again. Nothing. I haven't seen Brian since we went into the woods for my birthday. No one seems worried. I'm really worried. I'm panicking. I'm losing my ever-loving mind, but not because I don't know where Brian is, it's because I know where he is. Last night I heard my parents talking. My mom is pregnant. My parents had me when they were only 19, and I was told I probably would never have a sibling. I was excited to hear the news, until I continued to listen. They're going to kill me. And get away with it. If you toss a coin down the well before your child is 18, you can rid of your child for another. It gives you a chance to try again with no consequence. A life for a life. A child for a child. I should have listened to Brian. I should have listened to what he had to say. I could have ran. I could have done something. It was too late to him, but if I would have just heard him out maybe this would be different, but it's not. There's nothing I can do. I hear a faint voice calling to me from behind Brian's house. It's soothing, like when my mother used to sing to me. Actually, it sounds just like her. I hope she's not out there. I'm going after her. I have to stop this. If I don't come back, let everyone know. I know what happened. I know what happened to all of the missing children. I know why no one in the neighborhood ever had a sibling.